Good morning, everyone. I am so excited to be back. It has been quite a while since I've been online, and it's been a while since I've interacted on Facebook and Instagram. I've been moving, so over the Christmas holiday, we moved to Washington from Arizona, and so we've been busy getting our new house set up and getting things done. And honestly, I didn't even have an office for the first 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm excited to be here and excited to start this new program. So this year, there are a lot of new things going on in my life. And I decided that with that, I was going to also create some new things in my business. And so today is the first episode of SunnySide Up with Sandra, and it is going to focus on being happy and how we can create more happiness in our lives. So if you're here, then please let us know that you're here and throw your name in the comments and tell me where you're from. And so again, I am Sandra Jarvis, and I am located in McCleary, Washington, which is just outside of Olympia. So I see we have some people with us. Susan, good morning. Susan's my sister, and I'm excited to have her here. And Taylor is watching. Hi, Taylor. I miss you. And Catherine. And so welcome to the three of you. And if there are others out there, please tell us that you're here and let us know where you're from. Hi, Melanie. Glad you're here. So I am going to talk today a little bit about my mission to be happy. So those of you who have been in this group for a while know that it has changed names recently. And it went from being the Good Enough University to Mission to Be Happy. And the reason for that is actually because I really wanted to be able to focus on happiness and to be able to focus on the things that bring us joy and peace and contentment in our lives. And focusing on being good enough is just one of the things that can do that. And I wanted to be able to open up the focus to be more broad. And so we are going to we will still be talking about our confidence and our self-image, but with that, we'll be doing a lot of other things and discussing other ways that we can be happy. And so today I want to tell you a little bit about my personal journey, and then we're going to talk about mind management, which is one of the most powerful things that I can teach you about choosing happiness in your life. So my mission to be happy started more than 2 decades ago, and it was with a single question. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I was sitting in the tiny bedroom of an old Victorian home turned therapy office when my counselor, who was sitting across from me, asked, "What makes you happy?" Now, the question startled me because I was there to talk about anger and abuse and addiction and depression and not happiness. And I honestly didn't have an answer for her. And after an awkward pause, I said something like, "What do you mean?" And she looked at me and she said, like, what brings you joy, or what do you do for fun? And those questions were just as foreign to me as what makes you happy. I had no idea what made me happy. And I remember leaving the office that day feeling more broken than I had felt when I walked in. But that was the start of a journey because it got me curious. I had no idea what made me happy at that point. And doing fun things was also a foreign concept. The only thing I could think of that was fun was going to Disneyland, which I am totally addicted to, but it's not something that happens on a regular basis. At the time, I was severely depressed, and I was a stay-at-home mother with 5 kids and some dogs and some fish and even a pet rat. And all of them relied on me to take care of them. And I had been struggling throughout my entire adult life just to create a good life for my family. As ridiculous as it seems now, happiness hadn't ever even been something that crossed my mind. I was living by the rules. I was going to church every Sunday, and I was taking my family to church every Sunday. I was serving other people. I was keeping my house clean and volunteering in the schools. I was taking my kids to their piano lessons and their dance lessons and their soccer practice. I was gathering them together for breakfast and for dinner. I was doing all of the right things, all of those things that I'd been told and taught that a good mother does. But I was completely worn out. There was not time for happiness. And instead of happiness, when I look back on that time in my life, I was actually creating misery for myself and my family. I felt like I was overworked and underappreciated. And if I'm really honest, I hated my life. It was not fun and it was not happy. And there was not a lot of happiness or joy in our home, in spite of all of the things I was doing that were supposed to make me happy, right? So we weren't poor, but we didn't have a lot of extra money because we were raising a large family. And so I didn't have the money to do the things that are traditional self-care, things like lunch dates with friends or massages or manicures or pedicures. And I had 5 kids, and so I really didn't have the time to do that anyway. I felt completely stuck and I was unfulfilled. And honestly, I was a little bit resentful of all of the women that I saw around me who seemed to have all of the things that I wanted. The point is, I was not happy and I had no idea how to be happy. And in fact, it had never occurred to me until my counselor asked that question that happiness was something I was supposed to be seeking. Righteousness was way up on my radar. And being a good mother, that was something that I was trying to do. But happiness at that point, well, I wasn't sure how to get it. I didn't really know what it meant. And if I'm honest, I don't think that it was something that I really even wanted because I didn't understand it and didn't know how to make it part of my life. So I want to talk for just a minute about the definition of happiness, because when I talk about being happy, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Whenever this happened, when I sat in my counselor's office and she asked me that, the thing that came to my mind was excitement or even elation or entertainment. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about smiling a lot or laughing at things or feeling good because of a circumstance. Because honestly, if I had to rely on my circumstances to create happiness, then I'm afraid it probably wouldn't happen very often. Because our life circumstances aren't always happy. Our life circumstances are about 50-50. They're 50% positive and they're 50% negative. And that is how it's supposed to be. So when I talk about happiness, I am referring to something that is more of a pervasive sense of contentment and joy. It's a feeling that everything will be okay, that even when the storms of life are swirling around us, you can know that everything will work out in the end. I think that happiness is a feeling of being gratified and grateful for life itself. So it's a state of being. It's not something that just comes and goes. It's not fleeting. It is something that you create and it stays. It can encompass all of the emotions. Happiness doesn't necessarily mean that you're happy all the time, but it means that you are content and that you have joy in your life. For me, I would say that happiness is that deep assurance that everything is always working out for me, and the belief that no matter what happens in my life, it is going to be okay. So when we talk about happiness, keep that in mind, because I know that there are many of us who are struggling, who are in situations that are not easy, and um, that life can be hard. And for those of you who know my story, you know that my life has been hard. You know that I have struggled. And yet I have found happiness and I've found incredible peace. And that's what I want to help each of you find in your lives as well. So if we fast forward 20 years, then here I am, and I am living a completely different life than I was when I was sitting in my counselor's office and she asked me that question. And I'm setting off on this mission to be happy. Honestly, I've been on this mission for a while, but now I am inviting all of you to join me. And I want to help you understand the things that I've learned. And I want to share it because I think there's a severe lack of happiness in the world. A lot of people are feeling overwhelmed and underappreciated. We are trying to be good, right? We're trying to check all the boxes. We're trying to be good moms and good wives and good employees and good churchgoers. We're trying to do all of those things that are right, but it's not bringing joy, and it's not leaving us with that feeling of peace and contentment. So that's what I want to focus on. I find it interesting because when my clients fill out their initial paperwork, when they come to me for coaching, one of the questions that I always ask is, what are you hoping to achieve through coaching? And the answers are very interesting. They're varied, they're different, but almost every time the answer has something to do with figuring out how to feel better about life or how to be happier in the things that they're doing. Most people don't come to me because they want to be the president of the United States. Their goals don't have anything to do with making enormous change in their lives. Their goals have to do with finding peace and happiness and contentment and joy in the life that they're living today. And that's what this mission to be happy is all about. So, welcome. I am excited to be here, and I'm excited to have you here. And I think that it's going to be an awesome journey, and I hope that you're going to stick with me. So I just saw a comment by Debbie, and she says, I've always thought happiness was a side effect of righteousness and doing the right things. And I want to address that because, Debbie, I always thought the same thing as well. And that was what I was working on for all of those years, was being righteous, because righteousness was going to bring me happiness. But I have found that that's not necessarily true. Now, does that mean that no, I'm not saying, but what I'm saying is that they're two separate things. You can be completely righteous. You can be working towards being the best you can be, keeping all of the commandments, doing all of the right things, and be miserable. So happiness is not a side effect of righteousness. It's not a side effect of being worthy. It's not any of those things. Happiness is something we choose to create in our lives. and it is something that we have complete control over. And that is what we're going to talk about today, because today we're going to talk about one of the 4 pillars of happiness that my mission to be happy is built on. And those pillars are mind management, the life balance triangle, making purposeful contributions, and learning the language of joy. And over the next few weeks, I'm going to be focusing on each one of these pillars during the SunnySide Up with Sandra episodes. But today, we're going to focus on mind management, because honestly, I believe it is the most powerful of these pillars. And so we're going to talk for a minute about what mind management actually is. So mind management, if I were to define it, I would say it is simply the act of consciously choosing your thoughts. So I could go into a much more detailed explanation, and I am going to talk about it more, but that really sums it up. It's unfortunate, I think, that mind management isn't taught to us early in life, because the truth is, each one of us, every person on earth, has complete control over the things that we allow into our minds. And if we understood that from a young age, I think we would accomplish so much more. Now, this was something I did not understand until just a few years ago. I always thought that whatever popped into my head was truth. It never occurred to me to question my thoughts. I mean, if I woke up in the morning and I looked into the mirror and I thought, wow, we're having a really bad hair day, then I'd just accept that. And it was. Or if I yelled at my kids and the thought popped into my head, wow, you're a terrible mom, then it was truth. I also believed that the thoughts and ideas that were thrust onto me as a child by my parents and by my caregivers, by my teachers, my church leaders, that those things were capital T truths. They were absolute facts. But the thing is, none of that is true. None of it. The truth is that each one of us gets to choose what we are going to believe. We get to choose how those beliefs will make us feel, and we get to decide what actions we're going to take because of it. So my sister, Susan, who is here today, she's in the chat talking to people. Yesterday, she posted something in the Mission to Be Happy group that I loved, and it was 10 scientific ways to be happy. And it was interesting to me as I looked at this, because I have been doing some research on the scientific things behind happiness. And anyway, this is the thing that she posted is a little chart. And it was interesting because as I looked at it, I thought, wow, a lot of these things are simply mind management. Meditation is one of them, which is managing your mind. It is controlling the things that you allow into your head. Practice smiling. I mean, if that's not mind management, because you get to choose whether or not you're going to smile. Practicing gratitude. Again, that is mind management. It is choosing the things that you're going to think. So it's interesting, planning a trip, but not taking it. That one is an interesting one, and I've never heard that before. But I'll tell you that it's something I do on a regular basis. Whenever I get really depressed, I plan a trip to Disneyland. And I would say that I have taken probably, I don't know, 1 out of every 10 trips that I actually plan to Disneyland. But planning a trip to Disneyland is something that totally lifts my spirits and makes me happier. And so I just thought that chart was really interesting. And if you want to see it, it's in the Mission to Be Happy Facebook group. So head over. But our minds create our realities. And so it's important to recognize that if there is something in your mind that is making you miserable, you have a choice about whether or not you keep it there. And when you understand that, then you start to see how much power you have over the realities that you're creating in your life. So think about this. If you are in complete control of your mind, if you're in complete control over what you allow inside your head, then what do you have control over? You have control over your values. You have control over your language, the messages that you send to yourself as well as to other people. You have control over your self-esteem and your belief system about anything in the world. You get to choose that. You have control over your confidence, your spirituality, your mental state, your potential, your capacity for making decisions, your willingness to do what you say you're going to do, your ability to create wealth in your life. You have control over everything. And when you truly understand the power that you have when you manage your mind, then there is nothing that you can't have. There's nothing that you can't create in your life. Your mind creates your reality through the thoughts that you entertain. And because of that, you get to have control over everything in your life, including your ability to be happy. So imagine how your life would be different if you believed, if you really truly believed that you had the potential to create your ideal life. What would you be doing differently? And how would that belief affect your daily actions? How happy would you be if you could create your ideal life? Now, most of us have major limiting beliefs that are in our heads and that hold us back and keep us from getting what we want out of life. And honestly, that's okay. It's part of our human nature. All of us judge ourselves and we judge other people, and we tend to believe that we are not capable of creating an amazing life for ourselves. Now, when I say an amazing life, what do I mean? Well, I mean whatever you want it to be. For some people, an amazing life may mean making $1 million. For someone else, an amazing life might mean just being satisfied with what they have. You get to choose what it means to be happy. You get to choose what it means to create your ideal life. But today, I want you to understand that you are choosing the life that you're currently living. You have chosen that life through the thoughts and the emotions and the actions that you have taken up to this point in your life. Okay, where's my phone? I need to turn it off. Sorry about that. So you have created it through your thoughts and your emotions and your actions up to this point in your life. And the reason I want you to understand that today, and if you take nothing else away from this, I want you to understand that if you want something different in your life, then it's up to you to make changes. It's up to you to create it with your mind. It's up to you to manage your limiting beliefs and your fears and your assumptions and the way that you interpret every situation you find yourself in, because that's how you create change. If what you are living today is a product of what you've thought so far, then it stands to reason that changing your thoughts and changing your thought patterns will make a different life for you tomorrow. So I was coaching yesterday, and my client shared with me her current message to herself. So for those of you who have not been coached by me, I teach my clients that you should always have a message to me. And that is simply a thought that you're working on, that a thought that you're working on believing about yourself or about your life or about something that you want to change. So it can be anything. It can be, I can do hard things, or it could be, I am an amazing mother. It could be whatever you want it to be. So my client shared with me that she has recently changed her message because she had gotten to the point that she solidly believed her last one. And her new message is, changing things changes things. So let me say that again. It's changing things changes things. Now, it took me a minute to process it when she was talking, but when my brain caught on to it, I realized just how powerful that thought is. It is an incredible piece of mind management. Changing things changes things. So think about it. Again, if you're living the life today, or if the life you're living today was created by your thoughts and feelings and actions up to this point, then if you continue thinking and feeling and doing those same things, then in 5 years, you're going to be living the same life, because that's the life you're creating. But if you want to create a different life, if you want in 5 years to have something better, something more exciting, something happier, then you can make a change. And what if you only made one small change in the way you think about yourself? What if your change was simply, I love myself? What if that's your change? I love me. Well, where is that thought going to take you? Where are you going to be in 5 years if today you decide to believe that you're worth loving? I can guarantee you that it will make a difference in the way that you treat yourself. And I can guarantee that because it's one of the things that I had to really work on through the past couple of decades of my life. When I sat in my counselor's office that day and she asked me the question, what makes you happy? Well, I didn't like myself. I didn't love myself. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was so focused on trying to do what was right that I didn't have any idea what to do to take care of me. So think about a small change that you could make in the way that you think and create your own message to me. Create your own message that you are trying to believe about yourself and see how that changes your life. When you do it, I encourage you to make a poster and hang it on your refrigerator, or write it on your bathroom mirror, or create an alarm that goes off on your phone so that you're constantly reminded of that new message to yourself. And do it repeatedly for a long time until you absolutely believe that message. It's interesting. I can look back over the past few years and I think about the messages that I have worked on believing. And today, when I look back at those things that felt so impossible to believe back then, now they're just part of my regular belief system. They're things that I believe all the time. In fact, that counselor that asked me or what made me happy was the first person who introduced me to that concept. And she had me write on a card, and it said, I am no better or worse than anyone else. And that was it. Because at that point in my life, I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that I was equal to everyone else on the earth. I believed that I was severely lacking in all kinds of ways. And so just the thought that I could be an equal to other people was a huge challenge. It was an enormous piece of mind management to get to a place where I could believe that. So let me give you a personal example of what I am working on right now. And and how I am going about making changes in my mind management. So this year, my major goal is to lose 100 pounds. Now, that is a huge amount of weight. And honestly, I've been saying I was going to do it for years. And always before, I've attacked this goal in a huge way. I have made major changes in my actions, like cutting out entire food groups. And then after 2 or 3 weeks, I give it all up. And the reason that it's never worked is because I haven't taken the time to change my mind, to change the things I was thinking. I've always tried to just change the actions and hoped that that would be enough. Well, what we know is that our thoughts create our feelings, and our feelings create our actions. And so if you don't start by changing your thoughts, then you're not ever going to change. Nothing's going to happen. So this time, I actually hired a coach. And my coach is helping me change my thoughts a little bit at a time. And she's helping me recognize that by managing my mind and making small changes in my thinking, then my emotions and my actions will start to change as well. So I'm only a few weeks into this weight loss program, but let me tell you some of the changes that I've made so far. So the first thought that is different than anything I've ever had before is that I am not going to quit trying until I have lost the weight, no matter what. Now, that is a big deal because I have never committed to believing that before. Always before, I've thought, I'm going to try this out for a couple of weeks and see what happens, right? And then after 2 weeks, when I haven't lost 100 pounds, well, then I'm just frustrated and done, right? I mean, have any of you ever done that? You say, okay, I'm going to try this out, see what happens. And maybe you even do really well and lose 10 pounds, but it's not 100. And so forget this, I'm not going to do it anymore, right? After day 14, you step on the scale and you go, what? I've only lost 10 pounds after starving myself for 2 weeks? Well, then forget it. Okay, so I am not going to quit. That is my new thought. I am not going to quit. I'm going to do whatever it takes to lose the weight. And even if I fail, even if I go off my plan and do things that I'm not supposed to do, I'm not going to quit. And I'm not going to make myself start over. I'm going to continue this until I am done, until I've lost the weight, until I've figured it out. So my coach pointed out to me that in order to reach this goal, I only have to lose 2 pounds a week. And in a year, I will have lost 100 pounds. And so when I think about it that way, then I no longer have to think about making enormous changes and cutting out whole food groups in my diet, because I can make little tiny changes in the way I think and still meet that goal of just 2 pounds a week, right? So instead of deciding that I'm going to change everything in the world and do it all at once, I'm working on changing my mindset a little bit at a time. All right. So some of the things, the mind management that I have done thus far. So one of my common things that I've done before when I dieted was, I always say, I'm just never going to eat sugar again, ever, which is really kind of ridiculous. So this time around, I've decided I'm not going to do anything that I can't believe that I can actually do, right? So I'm going to use my mind to make these changes. So the question I ask myself is, am I willing to believe that I can do this until I die? So am I willing to believe that I will never eat sugar again until I die? Well, no, I'm not willing to believe that. Why not? Because I know it doesn't work. I love sugar, and I know that cutting out an entire food group is never going to work, and it's going to be really difficult for my mind to handle that change. Now, I will say that maybe somewhere down the road, my mind will be able to handle that. But right now, I'm working on making small changes that I can believe. So I'm not cutting sugar out from my diet. Am I willing to give up baked goods for the rest of my life? No, I'm not. Why not? Because I love to bake, and it's a hobby for me, and it's something that I enjoy. It's something that actually brings me happiness. So I know I'm not going to quit. So I'm not going to cut out all the baked goods either. I'm not going to do things, I'm not going to try and make my mind believe things that I just see as impossible. So, what can I do? How can I change my mind? Well, am I willing to only eat 2 chocolate chip cookies instead of 6 chocolate chip cookies? There is something that I can do. My mind can grasp onto that. My mind can believe that I can change in that way. And so that's my new thought. My new thought is I am going to give up part of my sugar. I am going to give up part of the things that I know are bad for me. Can I leave? Can I believe that it's possible for me to leave 2 bites on my plate at every meal? Yeah, I can believe that. I can do that. So those are the kinds of changes that I'm making. And the reason I'm making them, and I want you to understand this, is that it has nothing to do with weight loss. It has to do with making changes in my mind that I can believe. Okay? So when you start trying to change your life, you can't start by making enormous changes in the way that you're thinking, because your brain will never believe those changes. It will never believe that you are going to stick with it and do things that you've never been able to do before. You have to start with the little things. You have to find small changes so that you can make those small changes in your life. Okay? So, what is your big goal? What are you trying to work on right now? What is the thing that you are, what was your New Year's resolution that you are wanting to accomplish in the year 2020? That, and then think about what is keeping you from doing it. Because it's that thought that you need to change, and you need to change it a little bit at a time. All right? I want you to recognize that when you are making changes, when you are managing your mind, you have to talk to yourself. You have to ask yourself questions. You have to get curious about the things that you're doing and the things that you're thinking, and you have to examine your emotions and decide how you can make the changes that you want to change. And you have to do it a little bit at a time. That is mind management. It can be used in any area of your life. It can be used on any thought that you have at any moment. And the fact of the matter is that we have about 60,000 thoughts a day. They come to us, they pop into our heads, and we get to choose whether or not we're going to believe them. We get to choose whether or not they are powerful for us. We get to choose whether or not they are creating happiness and peace and contentment in our lives. So think about something that, think of a thought that you have on a regular basis that is not empowering to you. I'm going to use the example that I'm a horrible mom, because first of all, I think that's a thought that most mothers have at some point. I know it's a thought that I have had to deal with, and I want you to recognize that it is not true. Now, a lot of you I don't know, but I can guarantee you that you are not a horrible mom. And in fact, my personal belief is that you are exactly the right mother for your children. And that makes you a perfect mom. And so I want you to think about that. I'm a horrible mom. Have you ever questioned that thought? Have you ever asked yourself, what does a horrible mom look like? And what does a horrible mom do? Has it ever occurred to you that perhaps horrible mothers are not like you, but that maybe the things you're doing that make you think you're horrible are actually what good moms do? And maybe your kids need you with your mistakes and everything exactly the way you are. Maybe you are the perfect mother for them. So the next time you have that thought, I don't want you to accept it. The next time you have the thought, I'm a horrible mom, or whatever the thought is that you chose, I want you to question it. I want you to get curious about it. I want you to decide if it's a thought that is actually creating something good for you. I want you to think about how you could change that thought to be something that is empowering for you. Because you get to choose whether or not you want to keep that thought around. You get to decide whether or not something pops into your head and you want to keep it. So even things that are opinions about yourself, even things that are, I don't know, things that you have always believed, that you have always believed to be absolute truth, you can question those things. You can decide whether or not those are things that you want to keep around. You don't have to believe them. You do get to choose what you are going to have in your head. It's mind management, and it is powerful. So remember this. You get to decide what stays in your brain and how it is going to affect you. You get to choose what you are going to believe and what those beliefs are going to dictate in your life. You get to get rid of anything that is not making you happy. You get to create whatever life you want to lead by taking control of your thoughts and your feelings and your actions and by making stuff happen in your life. You have that power. And one of my favorite messages for me is that everything is always working out for me. And I'll tell you that it has become something that is said often in our house. And it's awesome because it helps us to recognize when things are going right. And it's amazing when you're looking for things to go well, when you're looking for things to make you happy, how often you find them. You find them all the time. They're all over. And so I want you to consider, what is the thought that you're going to try to believe that is going to help you create more happiness in your life. And then I want you to say it out loud 2 or 3 times a day, and say it 10 times a day in your head. And then watch how that changes the way that you think and the way that you feel. So for me, everything is always working out for me. Does that mean that my life has suddenly become easy? No. In fact, my life is still challenging. But because my brain is now trained to believe that everything is always working out for me, when it comes across a challenge, it immediately goes to work solving the problem so that things can work out. And so far, they have. So again, I challenge you to come up with a message for yourself that is going to start to change the way you think about your life. Make sure that it is a positive statement that is going to lead you to greater strength and success. And if you know what it is, if you know what that message to yourself is going to be, share it with us in the comments so that we can get ideas, and so that other people can see what you are trying to do to manage your mind. So like I shared earlier, my client yesterday is using changing things changes things. And another one is I can do hard things. If you are still struggling with your worth, then you could simply have I am enough or I am good enough. I don't think that it really matters a whole lot what it is, as long as it's a positive statement that is going to lead you to greater strength and success. So choose something and start testing it out in your life. So Angelica just shared, I am fruitful. I love that. I really like that a lot. Melanie says, I've been pondering this since you said it, and I just hit on what feels right. I am exactly who I am supposed to be. I love that. It actually gives me chills. That is one of my favorite beliefs. I am exactly who I am supposed to be. And Susan says, well, I can feel well and accomplish enough today. That's a great one. And I think that one is so good because at the end of your day, if you believe this, then whatever has gone on through your day will be enough. You will have accomplished enough if you believe that you can accomplish enough today. So those are some great thoughts. Thank you for sharing them. To just remind you before we sign off here that your mind is the most amazing tool that you have for changing your life. It is the most powerful way for you to create happiness and peace and contentment and joy. And the best part about your mind is that it is 100% free. You already own it. And so why not use it? Why not use it to create the things that you want in your life? So that is all for today. I hope that you will really start working on managing your mind and follow along in the Mission to Be Happy Facebook group and also in Mission to Be Happy on Instagram. My daughter, Kayla, and I are both going to be in and out of those groups and sharing things with you about the 4 pillars of happiness that I mentioned earlier. And then every Tuesday, we're going to be having SunnySide Up with Sandra, and that will happen at 9 o'clock Pacific time on Tuesday mornings. So thank you for joining us today. Here's to happiness, and we'll see you again next week on SunnySide Up with Sandra. Have a great day.